Let's talk about the state of the industry. We did over 100 million in revenue last year. Monarch tractor failing, all their tractors are up for sale. There was a lawsuit, turned out not to be autonomous to the degree that they said.
Do you have a business, and this is the brutal truth, if you pull the CARB, the Cal Air Resources Board subsidies off the table, and by the way, CARB wrote checks for $110 million.
The announcement, FarmX purchased Amos. Kind of interesting acquisition. What do you think about that?
I do think you'll see more and more companies looking at physical AI as an AI layer that can add value and catch margin.
Bonsai acquired FarmNG. Two companies that I thought were pretty interesting all along.
Right.
That's another thing that happened last year, right? Was FarmWise just basically went under and sold all the assets to Taylor Farm. But in that particular case, I did enjoy seeing that investor getting burned. We've never announced this before, but I'm telling you now. Hello, Paul Mikesell, Carbon Robotics from the 2026 World Ag Expo in Tulare, California. Joined again, which might become an annual event, by Walt Duflock.
Hi, Paul. Great to be here. Great to be back in Tulare. So fifth generation California farmer, South Monterey County is a ranch, and then going on 6 years of Western growers with the Silicon Valley career in the middle. So a lot of ag in the family background, a lot of tech in the tech background, but a few startups, and now working with startups. And then, well, you guys aren't a startup anymore, but I'm working with startups and growers to do automation to help with labor and to do new chemistry options to help reduce the chemistry pressure for our guys.
And Western Growers is a grower advocacy group and tries to, my perception, tries to foster new technology, new tools and capabilities for the growers, right? That's the charter, I think, of the organization.
100%. Yeah, okay. So our membership, we're an advocacy group at heart. Our membership is 2,300 of the world's largest, medium, and small specialty crop growers. So fruit, nuts, and veg growers, heavily Western region, but they're global companies like Taylor Farms, Driscoll's Berries, etc. And our job, exactly right, is to advocate for them on a regulatory basis for water labor, on an innovation basis for things like autonomy and new technology innovation funding. And I get to be in Sacramento a lot. I get to be in DC a lot. And I get to talk to a lot of startups and growers. That's the job.
Sacramento is the California state capital.
Yes.
And California grows the vast, I don't know if it's the vast majority, but certainly the largest single state amount of specialty veg in the United States. So
for sure, our companies grow well over half of the specialty crops. I think going on 3/4 for the U.S. Cool. And we export a lot.
Okay, great. Let's do a little Carbon Robotics update. So it's been about a year since we spoke in this same configuration. Last time we spoke, I think we just announced the G2 version of the laser weeder. Laser weeder is a tool that uses AI, robotics, and then lasers to kill weeds in farm fields. It destroys them instantly, no herbicide spray, no people walking in your field pulling weeds out. You don't have to cultivate for weed control. So what happens then is you save money on the front end, but you also get a lot better yield and stand count. And so growers are seeing large increases in their volume coming out of the field. Some of the interesting things that have happened this past year, we did more third-party reports and studies with universities. There's a really nice couple of studies that came out showing a 30% yield increase with laser weeder. And that report alone has led to some sales because people are paying attention to that. And so we're starting to get more into this flow of showing what we're doing and using third parties to validate. And that's been really good. The G2 laser weeder is multiple sizes now. So that allows us to still have our traditional 20-foot size version. We also have a smaller version, 6 feet, that goes into things like greenhouses and tunnel agriculture. We're doing a lot of that mostly in Europe. And then, the G2 laser weeder has been really successful. We just announced our large plant model, so brand new type of AI for weed control and plant discovery. We've done a lot of announcements around LPM, the large plant model, LPM. That's gone incredibly well. And then we have our carbon autonomy kit, the ATK, which has also gone incredibly well. And we're trying to keep up with demand as much as that. But
nice.
One thing I did want to point out, just generally, I think people don't really realize how fast we've been growing and how fast we've been moving. So I'll tell you, we've never announced this before, but I'm telling you now, last year, we did over 100 million in revenue last year. So 100 million in revenue means, as you kind of hinted, maybe you're not a startup anymore, although we try to feel like one. We try to operate quickly like one. We clearly really care about our customers. But what that means is we're sort of establishing this beachhead, this idea that a company in ag tech can really grow and become something independent. Right? You don't have to do, let me do some small thing and sell out to whoever. So that's really good. And I think we can establish a pattern here in ag tech of building strong companies that support the growers and don't just, immediately sell out and then disappear, which is, I think, been the kind of the pattern, right? So,
Right.
yeah, so I feel really good about that. The autonomous tractor kit, we do a lot of tillage, doing a lot of laser weeding with that. That also is going incredibly well. Probably seeing stronger demand in Europe right now than we are in the US across the board, laser weeder and ATK. But that's moving really well. So I don't know. Any thoughts on that? Anything you want to say
Well,
about
no,
that?
a few thoughts. I love that you're publicly announcing the 100 million number. That's a huge number. My colleague Ben Pallone and I, we've sized automation as $250 million category last year, on its way to hopefully $1 billion in 2030 is our forecast. Obviously, you guys are now public at 40% of that number, so everyone should be paying attention because you guys are one of the lead dogs. So we love it. We love that you put $100 million year down. That's huge for the space.
Yeah.
I agree with you. It's good if we can get these startups to continue to grow and not take the first sale, maybe, unless they want to. It's their call. Their call. It's every founder's call.
Absolutely.
But I love that you're chasing the real finish line, which is great. And then I will say it's really interesting on the research point. I totally agree with you. I think that, and we rely on research too. We've got research, our case study. Let's go back to that for a minute.
That's right. You guys did a case study with us too the previous year, and that was incredibly
That's right.
helpful.
So you guys were first, right? So we appreciate you guys, taking that on and working with us, working with Braga Fresh, working with JV Smith.
Sure.
And let's just recap the numbers for the audience. So we actually wanted to say, how do you ROI a $1.4 million laser weeder?
Sure.
People were unclear.
Yeah.
It turns out if you take 3,200 acres of 8 different certified organic crops across the Braga operation, and you look at year one with just hand weeding crews, you're $2.1 million. A year later, you add the carbon robotics to the mix, and you're $1.3 million. Turns out $800,000 a year will pay for a laser weeder pretty quick.
That's
and
what
so
we need. Yeah.
that was huge for our growers to see that, to look at the numbers, to know how much work we did with you guys to sleuth out all those numbers. Was it H2A labor? Was it FLC involved? Was a farm labor contractor involved? Was it direct labor, right?
Sure.
Are you leasing equipment or buying equipment? And what are you using? A 5, a 4, a 6?
Right.
All matters. What's your logistics? How far do you have to run that tractor and carbon robotics machine down to get it working across your operation? Braga farms on our ranch, which is 45 miles south of headquarters. That's a big run to factor. And we factored in all those costs. It still saved $800,000 a year.
Nice. That was a lot of work that you guys did. And it took getting deep into the organization to really understand that. Right?
Absolutely.
Um,
You don't find all that in one cube, right? That's on
Yeah.
a bunch of different computers and has
For
to be
sure.
compiled and aggregated.
and sometimes the grower doesn't even know.
That's exactly
In fact, you probably showed them things they didn't know.
right. No
Right, as a
doubt.
part of this process.
No doubt.
So I'm pretty proud of that. And I'm proud of the way that we not only give them a quality product, but we have excellent support. I think everybody says we have excellent support. We tried really over-index on that.
Yep.
Because when you're farming, you're kind of, you're out there by yourself. There's a problem, you need to know who to call to help you. And so we really push on giving excellent support, making sure these farmers feel like they can get what they need.
Yes.
And they never feel like they're stuck. And I never want to see a machine parked. I want to see them just run and run and run, pay.
No, I think that's the reputation we hear about you guys from our growers. Is that you guys do over-index on service.
Yeah.
It's noticed and it's appreciated because it's a big deal.
Thanks. Let's talk about the state of the industry.
Yes.
Let's talk about the state of the industry. So some interesting things happened last year. Some good things, some bad things for the industry. So I'll say one, I think, pretty negative thing was Monarch tractor failing. You probably saw all their tractors are up for sale. There was a lawsuit about some dealers that had purchased, 10 of them, and then they turned out not to be autonomous to the degree that they said. And they wound up going under within probably 9 months of that, previous to that, they'd just raised another 170 million or something like that.
Right.
I have my own thoughts about that, but what's your take on that? What do you think about that?
Well, I have my own thoughts as well.
Yeah.
I share a few of them. It's rough. It's a rough outcome for the space because they were pretty high profile. Praveen's a good CEO. He was building some good product. It just wasn't where it needed to be to get to the market and get the next round of funding.
Yeah.
And you're right. I mean, that was a really full pivot from electric tractors to basically an IP and licensing shop.
Right.
And the open question on the minds of everyone at the time when they released it was, well, how's that going to work when you already took down this much capital and you're already this kind of valuation? Can you pivot that late in the game in that big a way? And it turns out maybe not. And we'll never know if they could have pulled it off or not, or if they'd moved earlier. I don't know if that pivot was ever going to be doable once you put that much capital in your pocket. The ongoing discussion I've had with Praveen and with all the other electric tractor manufacturers is, look, do you have a business? And this is the brutal truth. If you pull the CARB, the Cal Air Resources Board subsidies off the table, and then by the way, CARB wrote checks for $110 million to electric vehicle manufacturers and to growers who bought them to subsidize those. If you disabled a diesel or a gasoline piece of equipment, they would give you money. If you bought an EV tractor, they would give you money. You were buying basically an 80K Monarch, about 50, 60 horses, for net 20. And I heard net 0 in some cases.
I heard that
I'm like,
as well, yeah.
why would we be subsidizing that? So I'm making the case. We're going to DC next week. Ben Pallone, Danny Bernstein from Reservoir and I, we're making the case that, listen, we have some venture capital left and we have some of it going to automation, but we need federal and state funds to get this innovation funnel working again, because it's going to be a big problem. And think about the 110 million in 24 and the 460 million overall that CARB paid to EV manufacturers. They could have been subsidizing your product, other weeding products, other harvest assist products, other spray products, and we would be a lot further along than 250 million in revenue right now. Right?
Absolutely.
And that's the case I'm going to make to DC is stop giving the funding based on ideology around climate and emissions. Start basing it on actual farmer problems with real world results like carbon.
That's a good point. And we are keeping
like you guys are the interesting carbon to me. Not the carbon sequestration stuff, right? Carbon robotics is interesting to me.
Yeah, and we do keep herbicides out of the field. So
100%.
like we're,
100%.
That's an interesting point that you make. I don't know that I ever really thought that electric tractors was a thing to spend time on for us personally, because as you say, it only really exists in California. It's only because of CARB. You wind up in this weird cycle where you're recharging for, 120% of the runtime, something like that. So if I'm trying to get 4 hours out of the thing, now I got to recharge it for 5 hours or 6 hours or whatever it is. So if I want to get an 8 hour day, now I got to buy 2 of them, right?
It's a bad use case.
Swapping stuff around, sending stuff back to the shop to charge up, whatever. And they're small, and I like to look at it in exactly that way. If it wasn't for the subsidy, does this make any sense?
And what else could we do with the opportunity cost?
What do
we do with the subsidy, right?
Yeah.
If we're going to subsidize, I can show you where to subsidize.
Right, yeah,
absolutely. No grower, Paul, gets out of bed in the morning. Not Shea Myers, your first guy, not any of them, not Braga, not Taylor. Nobody wakes up thinking, man, if I just had an electric tractor, my farming operation would be awesome.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I do have the ideal electric use case. There is one. Inside the production facilities, those electric forklifts that run around all over the place, high rates of speed, they should be electric. You don't want emissions in the building, you don't want it on the food, and you want it to come in and charge
right there, easy.
Right there at the station all the time.
Cool.
Right? That's a great use case. But electric tractors on the farm, we had CARB come to a board meeting for Western growers, and Rod Braga and the rest of our board members were very good about saying, here's all the hidden costs that you guys aren't factoring in, and that just adds to it. I've got to put charging stations everywhere. I've got to plan my logistics different. I got to plan for charge time. And
is the California power infrastructure set up to handle it?
Is the grid ready? 100%. And at the end of that meeting, an hour in front of, our board, I mean, it's big hitters, right? After an hour, they said 2 things. They said, appreciate the feedback, best of luck. And you're like, okay, thanks for coming. Haven't changed a thing, unfortunately.
I do have one other electric case that I like. I really like the Burrow.
Yes.
Because it's a little platform, right? It does a great job of running, berries back and forth to the shed off the pickers. That's great. You can keep, because you're already rotating them, right?
Right.
I have a lot of respect for Charlie and what they've done. I like that. I like that
CEO.
use case, but tractors, I just don't. I never bought it.
No, you're right. A burrow fleet can be used properly, can save 15 to 30% of crew efficiency, and can do horticulture moves really well, right? So think about it. They've been like you. You rolled out the 200, 400, 600, 12, and 18, right? He's rolled out Burrow, Excel, Grande, and now Cortador, the cutter. And it's all for different use cases, right? Farmers needed different things. You listened. Charlie listened. It's working.
What I like about him is he posts these videos on his LinkedIn about the crazy stuff he tries to do with his machines on the weekend to break and test use case. That's what I love to see. Farmers in the field, or sorry, founders in the field.
Yeah.
Founders in the field is the only way to do it.
Founders in the field is the best way.
Man, when you see some guy who's like, I'm going to do AgTech, and you can tell his boots are brand new, and that, right? It's like, okay,
and his car's pretty clean.
Yeah, good luck with it. Yeah. Right. Exactly. He's driving a Mercedes or something.
No, I mean, you get the feeling with Charlie, and a little bit with you.
Yeah.
If you got a chance on a Saturday to go see some equipment in the field, raising my hand as well, you're going to go see the equipment in the field. I don't care that it's Saturday. I want to go see it.
That's absolutely right. Yeah, absolutely.
We're junkies. We're junkies. We're gym rats for AgTech.
It's cool, right? It's fun. I mean, you know. So two other interesting things. A day ago, maybe 2 days ago, the announcement: FarmX purchased Amos. Big fan of Tom Bow. I think he's a solid guy, hardworking dude. I didn't really know FarmX. I see the name, of course, but I didn't really know those folks. Interesting acquisition. Software only company, I think. I don't know. They had some sensors, but I feel like it was mostly software, acquiring an electric tractor company, and also had been focused on orchard autonomy with electric. Kind of interesting acquisition. What do you think about that? What are your thoughts?
Well, it's interesting. I haven't looked at the deal specifics and talked to the players yet, but I agree with you. It's an interesting buy. A little bit like Field In picking up Midnight back in the day, right? So guys go moving to the equipment side. I do think this whole AI space with physical AI is a thing. I do think you'll see more and more companies looking at physical AI as an AI layer that can add value and catch margin.
I love that idea. So I've got my interesting software, but I got to get down into the dirt. And
that's right.
Okay, I like that.
So we'll see where that goes. I do also think there's guys out there. So Michael Ott, who ran Rantizo back in the day, Michael just signed on with a private equity firm to do some roll-up stuff.
Oh, really?
In the automation space.
Oh, I know. He's
looking for kind of a specific group of segments.
Maybe there's some stuff like that.
Well, so I think that's the play I think this is. It's private equity in disguise in some ways, right?
Interesting.
Because think about it. We had 53 billion in venture capital in 21.
Right.
We're down to 32, 16, and now it looks like 16 and then 10 potentially in 2025.
Right.
And so all these companies that raised in 21 and 22 that aren't you guys and the guys that have raised again, they're going to be in harm's way in the next couple of years. There is talent there.
Yeah.
There is IP there. There is some knowledge and some tribal knowledge there that's really good.
Yeah.
So I think if we can repurpose those teams and those products correctly and efficiently, we can move the space forward. But a lot of them are not going to be able to raise the next round. Yep. So what's the exit for them? How do we make that happen?
Yeah, and I think that there's a little bit of confusion, lack of understanding about what autonomy really means. There's a big difference between being able to follow a series of geopoints versus actual autonomy world navigation. And so maybe this leads into the next interesting acquisition I want to bring up. Bonsai acquired FarmNG, two companies that I thought were pretty interesting all along.
Right.
Big fan of Tyler Nide.
Yep.
And has some interesting technology, real interesting technology on autonomy and navigation in orchards specifically. Acquired FarmNG, which had always been kind of cute little machines. Now they have the Amiga Max. You've probably seen we have some laser weeder modules on an Amiga Max over there in their booth, and they've had some other partnerships. Good for them. Interesting acquisition. I didn't quite understand the strategy until I saw them. So I talked to Tyler and I saw him sort of roll forward with this platform. Any thoughts or insight onto the?
Bill, I agree with you. Same opinion. I think both sides have some big brains on it, some big AgTech brains on it.
Sure.
And I think anytime you get big brains together, that's a good outcome. I think Bonsai has their space in the segment with a lot of the nut products, stuff they're doing well. This allows them to move down market a little bit to a lower price point. Yeah. The question for me is, and it remains to be seen, but I think it's kind of the bet is, can you use one sales action, one sales team, one go-to-market for everything from the Bonsai equipment scaled down to the FarmNG? If you can put one sales team against all of that, that's got to create some efficiencies and some scale for you, right? Because you're moving two different product sets across two different price points, and we'll see.
Maybe that's not his strategy, though. Maybe he's going to do some differentiated sales model. I don't really know.
You think he's going to keep them separate?
I have no idea.
I need to talk to you on it. So I'm talking before I've had deep conversations with them about it. But from a outsider's view, to me, it's an interesting product spectrum now, from the FarmNG Basic to the Max, to the Bonsai stuff. You've got a swath of products now, kind of like 2, 4, 600, 12, and 1800. They've got a swath of different price points and different sales actions available.
This is kind of like what you were saying too. It's was mostly a software company,
right?
purchasing a hardware company,
Right.
and now it's kind of that same pattern, perhaps,
Yeah.
where we're saying, okay, I've got my software, my AI, my world model, but I need to get physically down the stack
Yep.
to be sort of tight with what's happening. Okay. Also, something interesting happened. Autonomy had inked this deal with Kubota
Kubota.
and Bobcat.
Yep.
And they have them over there,
You can see it
over there driving around,
not that far away. Yep.
navigating orchards and stuff. That's kind of an interesting deal. Where now this is a company where kind of similar idea. They were all entirely software. They integrated with their sensors, of course, but all of their IP was in software, inking an OEM deal.
Right.
Kind of interesting. That's and two of them, in fact. And I don't know if I've even really met the Autonomy founder before. Seems like really knows how to make good business deals. Kind of impressed by that. I don't know, thoughts about that?
No. So big
Yeah.
fan of Tim Bucher. He's been on several panels with me. We go to events together. Knows his way around. Silicon Valley legend to mini legend, right? I mean, the guy knows his way around.
Cool.
Done a ton of stuff with Autonomy, ton of stuff in Silicon Valley. Classic, came over to the farming side of it, knew a little bit, learned a lot more. And I agree with you. The first deal was interesting. The second deal got more interesting because, so is this the model now?
Right.
And we'll see. But I mean, that aftermarket autonomy add-on, a lot of folks are out there with it.
Sure.
There's certainly a market with all the tractors that are already out there, right? So who can put the ATK out there, put the autonomy out there? Because a lot of farmers, I mean, the economics on farming right now, it's not great.
Yeah.
They're going to try and get a few more miles, few more years, few more hours out of those tractors. If autonomy allows them to do that without having to pay for that driver that they can't find a lot of times anyway, not a bad idea. And what we're seeing is the less and less experienced driver you have to put on that tractor, the more risk you're bringing to your business from both an injury or a performance perspective. Yeah. So going autonomous is actually a lot of goodness in a lot of ways.
Sure.
You minimize that risk of the driver getting hurt. You minimize that risk of the equipment bumping into something.
Yeah.
All of that stuff is good. And so I think aftermarket on existing equipment is a huge market. I mean, yes, the new tractors are going to start to have it like the new cars start to have it.
Sure.
But we've got a huge fleet yet to enable. And the aftermarket stuff's going to have to do it.
Yeah, we, Carbon ATK, we kind of are in a different space than like your bonsais and Autonomy, because we do big acre tillage. So there's an 8 series out here.
The 8, yeah, it looks awesome.
It's running, and that one had been doing a lot of tillage this year. We also do a fair amount of laser weeding, of course, right? So we're kind of open field work. Doing tillage patterns, able to navigate the furrows, post-planting, entirely visually with our AI system. So that works really nicely. But it is, we plug into the existing tractors because there's a lot of 8Rs out there, a lot of 9Rs out there. And that is, John Deere makes a nice big machine. So for us, it's like, let's plug into that and then we'll drop our software into there.
Right.
Unlike Bonsai and FarmNG, I don't think we're going to be buying John Deere anytime soon, but keep your ears open. And
listen.
Yeah. So it's been a great product, and we're going to continue to push, because the inbound for exactly the reasons you're saying for ATK, because it's not just, part of it is, of course, my driver, how to get a quality driver, getting folks who want to work those shifts, right? The 24/7 in farming season is really hard to find people. Midnight shift is difficult, of course. But then it's not just that, it's my equipment. The way I amortize the cost of my equipment, the way I get the ROI is I need to run it.
Right.
And so if I can now run it twice as long, because I'm getting 24 hours a day and not 10, right? Suddenly my amortization period and all that equipment, the ROI period, which I need to run that thing to have it pay for itself, cuts in half, right? I'm cash positive in half the time now.
Exactly.
That's amazing. So that was the real, kicker for us on autonomy and why we bet so heavily on it.
Well, and back to the Braga case study, right? So think about the way the grower thinks about it, right? They look at that 800,000 number, and that breaks down for Eric and the team at Braga at the time. If I can use this thing for 340 8-hour shifts, I break it even. So their first thought was not, when can I work 340 days? It's
Right.
when can I work 150, 70 double shift days?
That's right.
So to your point, the utilization becomes the key metric because that's how the ROI accelerates.
Yeah.
That's how the growers think about all this stuff.
Yeah, it's all, I need to get my equipment out there and work it as hard as I can. How do I do that?
Yep.
What do I,
Which is why the support becomes important, because when you're double shifting a laser weeder, you're out there 16 hours a day with it. It doesn't have a lot of downtime. It can't have a lot of downtime.
That's right. That's right. And that support has got to be, man, if I see one mistake that these early stage AgTech companies make, it's lack of support. It's lack of just diving on it. I mean, I don't mean to pile on too much, but that was kind of what we learned about Monarch, right? Was that they sold these tractors and they said, best of luck to you. It's autonomous, wink, wink, right? And then now there's lawsuits, right? When we sell Carbon ATK, we're pretty cautious about just making sure we understand the use case. Is it something we support? We know we can do well, and we can guarantee you, Mr. Farmer, are going to have a great experience with it. And that matters more to us, honestly, than making the money. And I think that attitude has served us quite well.
Yeah.
Quite well.
Well, and you look at the companies who try to make the transition from the as a service. As a service is a great business model, but it allows you to hide product challenges behind a customer support team that costs more than you think, right? So when they tried to switch to product, it was a tough transition to make. They didn't quite make it, and Taylor Farms picks them up. But
Farmwise,
you know, it just goes to show you, you can make that change on a whiteboard, and you can say, I'm going to go from this as a service on a per acre basis for a weeding robot to a CapEx sale. But the product has to stand up for it, and the support has to be there behind it in a different way, because suddenly it's the customer seeing both the product and the support. Everything's out in broad daylight.
All of a sudden they're like, that's right.
Before it was Farmwise's problem, now it's the growers'
That's an interesting, another thing that happened last year, right? Was Farmwise just basically went under and sold all the assets to Taylor Farms. And I hope Taylor is able to keep that product running. They must have gotten some value from it. That's why they bought it, hopefully. And hopefully they're going to see their money's worth out of the acquisition. I don't really know I haven't caught up with them, so I don't really know how that's going. But best of luck to them. And we certainly don't like to see other AgTech companies fail like that. It sets a bad precedent, you know what I'm saying? Okay.
No, but to your point, just to close the loop, Taylor's going to use it internally for weeding as a service for now. They probably will still look at you guys. They probably still may look at a few other folks. They look at a lot of AgTech. But I do think for what they ended up picking it up for, they will make some ROI just off the internal usage. Whether or not they extend that to some other growers and do as a service for third parties, we'll see. But to your point, it's rough when AgTech companies fail. At least we can get them picked up at the end of the day, so that IP and those assets and those people, those team members, go somewhere productive. So there's still a good chunk of Farmwise team that's sticking around with the Taylor Farms team now.
Early Farmwise investor, maybe I don't say who, looked at us early on. Probably, I think that would have been probably the Series B. And we're supposed to meet us in a field, and we were doing some demos. They ghosted us, and then stopped responding to us, and then 2 weeks later announced they were investing in Farmwise. So I feel like, hey, you know, it's great to evaluate the opportunities and decide you want to invest in somebody else. But I didn't feel like this particular investor acted very, I'll say that they didn't act, it didn't seem like they were acting with the best of intentions. They kind of took our information and then ran after this other opportunity.
Maybe doing recon instead of doing
due diligence. And it just left a bad taste in my mouth. So like, we had all these field days set up, and we invited all these folks, and they just kind of blew it, like said they would come and then ghosted us. You know, not acting very well. And I think that they felt like they were going to maybe be the kingmakers because there wasn't a lot of AgTech investing at that time. But that's not, I would not call that acting right, you know? So I never like to see anybody fail. I never like to see anybody work hard and then have their product not succeed. So I feel bad for the Farmwise folks, but in that particular case, I did enjoy seeing that investor getting burned.
No, I get that. No, it's competitive on both sides, the investors and the founders. I will say this about the investor community. I feel like a lot of the venture tourists have left the building at this point, which is good.
Go away.
Because those venture tourists, they're the folks that wrote 42% of that 53 billion vertical farming and alternative proteins, way overhyped, burned all that money on fire. So we work close with the venture community that's with us still, because at the end of the day, if all we have is 10 billion now instead of that 53, and that's what we're going to have for a while, because exits are going to be a little tough for a while. So if we've got 10 billion a year, that's 50 billion over 5 years.
Wow.
we better spend it well.
We
So
better, better well.
we work closely with the venture investors to say, hey, do your homework.
Right.
Talk to Carbon, talk to Farmways, talk to the guys that are out there, talk to us.
Yeah.
Take your time, be patient, because if you make a bad investment, you're not going to stick around.
Yeah. And it's going to set this bad precedent for everybody. Yeah, you bet. Okay, maybe some other interesting topics. So here at the 2026 World Egg Expo in Tulare, this is our 5th time exhibiting here. We always love this show.
Yeah,
Great show. It's one of our favorite shows. This past year we were at Agritechnica in Hanover. We were at Fruit Logistica in Berlin. We were at Fruit Attractions in Spain. But the one I always really look forward to is this one because the vibe is cool. It's in the dirt. There's a lot of actual equipment here. But pretty sad attendance this year. I'm very disappointed. I'll say when I look at just comparatively how many people I see walking around, people at our booth, people at other booths, I think it's off by maybe 80%, maybe 70% less. It's right. So to be clear, I think I've seen probably 30% of the traffic that we've seen in previous years.
Wow.
It's bad. So what is this? Is this the American farmers really having trouble right now? Is this lack of perhaps AgTech innovation, so there's no reason to come? What do you think? What's happening? What do you think is happening?
No, I think about this a lot. I was putting some thoughts down last night that I want to give some time to percolate and get out with the couple posts later.
Sure.
I think the growers are struggling.
Yeah.
And I was at International Fruit Tree Association doing a panel with Inez Hanrahan and some other folks on Monday.
Okay.
And the fruit tree guys were interesting. So they said there's probably less of us than normally come to our annual events. Yeah. And in one case, one of the growers, I know him he's an apple grower from Washington, Jeff Cleveringi, he says, we normally send multiple guys down to the event, sent one this year, right? And then Jeff's a good operator, and they're making okay money for apples. It's not great,
right?
But there's your example. Team that used to send 3 or 4, now sending 1.
Right.
Now magnify that across how many growers come, right? So that would lighten the crowd.
That sure would.
Then I talked to a lot of startups yesterday. I talked to a few growers I bumped into yesterday. Yeah. Talked to a lot of folks doing like the pavilions where the startups are at. They weren't as light as your estimate, but they were definitely, we were consistently hearing it feels 30 to 40% light in the booth.
Okay.
And that has 2 impacts. Number one, you don't get the number of conversations you need to have to make that ROI happen on the event. And good on you guys for figuring out how to make this event work for you. Number 2, when you think about next year's marketing, you're going to look hard at the event and say, okay, how much did we spend? And it's not just the hard cost, right? It's the exhibitor cost. It's the cost to put guys in a $500 a night room in Tulare.
Sure.
The one night a week it's 500, or the one week of the year. And then it's all the opportunity costs of that team has to come here and set up on Sunday, Monday, take down on Friday, Saturday. It's a week out of the field for everybody that's here. It's a massive. I've done trade shows for 40 years, right? It's a massive investment. And so I think what you're seeing is, yes, growers are struggling. Yes, startups are struggling. Remember, venture capital way down. Yeah. So the venture capitalists are looking a little more scrutiny on the trade show budgets. And I do think, so what's interesting is I am starting to wonder, and I'm putting a thesis together, are some ag and ag tech marketing activities rolling away from Tulare and online? Because you see the Google results where we have all this Gen AI activity. Gen AI went from 5 billion hours of mobile activity 3 years ago to 48 billion hours of activity in 2025, 10x.
I can believe that.
And yet that's only 1% of activity on mobile. So all this 48 billion hours of activity, and still Google search revenue, basically what they're finding is more searches, less time on each search, but the click-throughs are better and the click-throughs are working because AI is generating better ad matches.
Right, okay.
So have some ag and ag tech guys started to figure out alternative platforms, social media, online ads, email marketing that make Tulare's math even harder to compete with other channels.
Could be.
I'm not sure, but if that starts, because look at the guys in the buildings here, right? I walked the buildings yesterday. I'll walk a couple more today. It's not all startups like it was 5 years ago when it was 53 billion. It's now your rope companies, your tie companies, your equipment companies, your balers, your aluminums, your components, your manufacturing components are now advertising back here. I guarantee you those numbers were in the Rolodex, the World Ag Expo crew, unused for 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Now they're calling them back going, hey, can you come back? And we'll see how long they stay.
Wow, really interesting. So I don't know what this means for how to disentangle, you know, what it means for this show versus the American farmer and what's happening.
Right.
It's very interesting to me. I kind of hinted at this earlier, but our European demand has accelerated a lot faster than our U.S. demand in this past year for laser weeder and for ATK.
Because I know what those shows cost to get over there for you and do the work.
Yeah, that's right. So when we were at Agritechnica, for example, that our booth, same setup as here, smaller but similar setup. We have a tread kill out there shooting lasers at the chips on the treadmill.
Yep.
You know, lots of posters and video screens and things like that. We were basically 5 people deep most of the time, and it was good convo after good convo about laser weeder, what's going on, they need this and that. So here today at Tulare, it's really just very, very sparse. So we talked about World Egg Expo, you know, and how it's one of my favorite shows. I want to talk about a show that I'm trying to understand why it exists and what it's for. World AgTech. World AgTech. Now maybe there's things you don't want to say or you can't say, but I found it to be not very good. It was a lot of VCs. It was a lot of you know, breakout sessions. And I'm like, what's the value in this? And then here's the thing that really grinded my gears this year. Other than the fact that they never invite us to be on stage, even though, as I said, we made $100 billion last year and we're in 15 countries around the world and hundreds of laser weeders, that they announced who their special on stage personas were going to be to talk about AI in agriculture, and it was Google and Microsoft. And I'm like, what are you guys doing? Right? Like, I'm proud of Carbon Robotics. You know, maybe for whatever reason they you know, they didn't think we fit. Okay, but choose Bonsai, or choose Burrow, or choose somebody who's actually doing stuff, right? Of course, I think Carbon would be an awesome choice, right? But Google and Microsoft, like, what is this? So that makes me think the show's not serious. It's just for Silicon Valley VCs. There's no farmers there. There's a couple, you know, but it's like not actually talking about farming. Have not been a fan of the way that show has been run. Certainly not a fan of the way that we've been not really asked to represent. I don't know, your thoughts. Here's a hot one for you.
No, totally. And I've had my back and forth with this show as well. So we're working with them. We work closely with them. I'm going to do a panel with Vonnie and some folks up there on AgTech. We should get you on stage. I agree with that. We'll see if it's not too late. And then I joke, it's capital tech, lowercase ag.
Sure.
And that's the challenge, right? So I'll bring my growers there, and they'll be on panels once in a while. And Driscoll's had guys on panels.
Yeah, that was actually good.
Right?
Yeah. That's what they should be doing. Yeah.
Came in.
Sure.
But to your point about content challenges and what are they putting on stage?
Right.
When my grower comes there and they're looking for information on specialty crop at scale, and they see yet another smallholder Africa presentation, they walk out. They're like, this does nothing for me. And we all know that the smallholder Africa stuff, while interesting, never scales here. We can only export technology to them. You can't import any technology from Africa here. So every time they put a smallholder from Africa stuff on the dais, they're just running the growers off to the next thing, if not running them off of the show. And so you're right. So who shows up? It's the capital. It's the founders trying to chase the capital, and it's conversations about the capital and trying to chase the capital.
That is what it is.
Which is not interesting for growers, right?
Conversations about the capital. Yeah, so it's like, I'm an ag tech company, I want to raise some money, I'm going to go to World AgTech.
Right.
I don't think that's even the right way to do it, but I think that is the show's reason for being.
But you can understand how it got there, right?
I can see how it got there.
And as VC was shrinking, it might have been one of the only viable opportunities to go chase the capital at scale in 3 days.
The thing that I'm disappointed about is it would be an awesome way to actually highlight some real world AI.
Correct.
You could have, you could put me up there, Tyler Naide, and Charlie from Burrow. We can talk about the different world models that we're building in the different use cases. You could have, you could talk about the new types of science that are being used to learn about ways we can do things in agriculture in new ways. You could have Adam from Trick Robotics, right? Adam Steger up there from Trick Robotics. Talk about his science that he did to figure out how his machine works, right? You could have real useful, real world applications and developments and technologies up there, machinery. And But I think putting Microsoft up there, it's like, God, like I already know what they're going to say. They're going to say AI, AI, Gen AI,
Right.
AI, right? Neural net, AI, right? There's no Microsoft, they're not in
They're not
Tulare.
they're not in Tulare, right? And
Yeah,
to your
yeah,
point,
yeah.
Microsoft shut down, or Google shut down Mineral.
Google shut
That's,
down.
Elliot Grant's off to his next thing, and
Yeah.
Elliot's going to chase some great stuff.
Sure.
And I know the rest of Rishi Pethy and all the guys are out doing their thing, and
Yeah.
she's helping us on some stuff.
Sure, yeah.
And Microsoft's got Beats, but again, Beats is meant for small, and Beats is meant for not a Beats doesn't work in a specialty crop of any size operation.
Right.
So I agree with you. Having those voices up there, they're chasing a different audience than the one I would like chase.
I think so.
You and I want the same audience, which is get the growers up there, get the technologists up there. Now, what they did do last year, they're doing again, is there's a day zero AI day, separate from the main event.
Yeah.
I would argue their biggest challenge right now is getting that day zero content integrated into the main content.
Yeah,
or getting it to extend to 3 days, because it's a pretty good day. Sachi Desai was there last year, and I think Rishi was too.
Sure.
That was about more use case than it was about just tech and capital, right? Because fintech cannot take over World AgTech. That doesn't make any sense.
Right, exactly. Yeah. That's absolutely right. I would like to see, I think you can say, I think it's better for everybody if you say, I've got the capital, I've got the startups, let's have the growers in there as well.
That's right.
Otherwise, these two groups making decisions by themselves, is how you get, Monarch and Farmwise type of outcomes, perhaps,
exactly
right? Where it's like,
well, and
hey, let's involve
how
the
you get
customer in this discussion.
big capital raises, right?
Yeah,
because the investors listen to themselves and listen to the founders without getting that third leg of the stool, the grower, in the mix. Again, that's our job. I need to be at World AgTech because I need to talk to those investors and hand out my cards like candy, right?
Yeah.
We need to be part of that due diligence cycle so they don't write bad checks.
Yeah, I know. It's like, how many of these bad check investments could have been resolved easily by, let me talk to a couple farmers.
One call.
Right. You know what I always do every fundraise? It's like, let's talk to some farmers every single time.
Love it.
And we talked about this before. The reason I've been good at raising capital is because I take my VCs out to the farms.
Right.
Right? I don't do this in San Francisco hotel rooms. And that has made all the difference.
Totally right.
It also means the more conversation with growers, the more conversation with customers, the better. And so when I'm transitioning a conversation from, would you like this technology, to, do you think you would pay for it? Would you say that to a VC? I'm learning stuff.
Right.
And for us, that was an important transition.
Right.
If I hadn't done that and I just gone out and raised the capital, who knows what, who knows.
Well, and let me give you a little, I'll brag for you, buddy. You've had a $2 billion out.
Yeah.
You've had a unicorn out.
Yeah.
So your pattern match is really solid, right?
Yeah.
And that allows you to get introduced to conversations a lot of other founders couldn't get to.
That's a good point, yeah.
But that doesn't mean you're successful, right? Look back, and I don't want to call him out, but I'll call him out. TJ Rogers.
Yeah.
Waterbit,
Yeah.
right? Great founder at Cypress.
Right.
Cypress Semiconductor, great company, right? Built a great empire in the semiconductor industry, as competitive as it gets. TJ comes to Waterbit, never got there, right? He was doing the vineyard, he was doing the personal vineyard, he was building the tech, he knew the numbers, he gave really sexy presentations, he got all kinds of capital, didn't work out. So you get full marks for bringing a profile that profile matches really well for venture capitalists, but then moving it to an entirely new segment, because enterprise data centers and AgTech, not the same.
Yeah, totally different.
Not the same.
Totally different.
And you've been successful in both of them. That's really good work. Really good work.
Hiring good people and being in the field.
100%.
That's what it is.
A good team is so key.
Right.
So key.
That's all that matters.
Just an aside on that one, and this is really frustrating to watch. I've had multiple cases the last 6 to 12 months where folks had offers on the table with verbals. And AI companies swoop in and offer them 2 to 3x and hire them right away. And you know what the recruiting process is like. It's rough.
It is.
To lose a guy at the end of a recruiting process after a verbal.
Sure.
Brutal setback. Brutal
heartbreaking.
setback. And I'm not going to call him out. I'm just going to tell the facts. Charlie Anderson, who we both love, is now hiring another CRO. You know what happened to his last one?
No idea.
Took 6 months to hire him. Got him on board. Was killing it because Burrow's a good product. Charlie's a good guy, and they got a good team. And after less than a year, he went to Charlie. Says, Charlie, I got an unbelievable offer.
Oh no!
I'm going to an AI startup.
I didn't know
you. Me 2 to 3x.
Yeah.
Because when you see Charlie on LinkedIn posting a CRO, I thought you got one. He goes, I did.
Right.
So just think about that dynamic from an AgTech founder perspective.
Yeah.
You are losing talent at the recruiting and the retention level to AI money that's giving some crazy offers.
Right.
And it's hard for them to say no, and it's hard for the founder to respond.
What we got to do is we got to show that you can get equivalent outcomes from AgTech.
Exactly.
Because we are AI companies.
Exactly.
And so the outcomes, so hopefully Carbon will be able to demonstrate multi-billion-dollar independent IPO in not
and NVIDIA is an investor and on the cap table.
Yeah, NVIDIA, we just brought in Giant last year, an international firm. A lot of good stuff is happening, and so I want to help sort of set the tone that it's actually maybe not a better decision to go to one. Now, look, if they're going to pay you a ton more money, then I understand that.
Right.
But you also have to be able to be in a position where you can compete, right? So you need to pay, and for some of these roles, you just have to pay up, you know? If you're your best AI talent, you've got to compete in the market. You can't just say, come join me because of my mission, but why don't you take a huge pay cut? I'm sorry, but that's just the world.
No,
right?
I know.
Equity and cash.
You're so right.
This is how it is, you know?
You're so right. And I don't think it lasts forever.
Yeah.
But I think for the next couple of years, you're going to have those AI guys out there writing large salary checks with equity behind it. And we do have to compete for those guys. Because I'll tell you, you probably see the same thing. I mean, I see the rockstar AI engineer. I mean, that dude is just he's a unicorn that's worth getting because they can just make stuff happen better and faster.
And you got to bet into him heavily. You know what I'm saying? So that's it. All right, cool. Well, Walt, thank you for the time. Been an incredible year for us. 15 countries around the world, $100 million a year we just closed. Lots of great stuff happening. We love our customers. We love Western Growers for all the help you've given us. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right.
Paul, it's been great.